Always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much, Peter, and thank you for having me.
Right, Minister, I know that this ICT Indaba came together quite quickly.
Yes.
Why the idea to have it?
Look, it is about time, Peter, that Africa takes its rightful place in technology, both Africa and South Africa, and we thought that it was a time that we take that rightful place. One, because we think that many other countries in the world have done so, and they have improved the lives of the people of their countries, and they have created many other jobs, and they've created an environment where social cohesion exists. And we think that in Africa and in South Africa in particular, we have to do the same.
All right, the slogan for this Indaba is bridging the digital divide. I wonder, how do you plan to do that?
Look, Peter, in many other ways. If we roll out broadband in this country and in Africa, first in this country, we will be able to connect people that are somewhere in the rural areas, in the village, in Bushbuckridge, where I come from, or in KZN, or in the Eastern Cape. And then they can then connect with people that are in Sandton, people that are here in Cape Town, and actually people can begin to talk and reduce the distance. But also it can help in education, and it can also help in health. It can help in many ways in business. If I were to make an example of a person who has a small business entrepreneur, somewhere in the villages of the Eastern Cape, if they have internet access, then they can start advertising their wares or their produce or what they manufacture to the world. They don't need a middleman to sell to somebody in Korea or somebody in Singapore or somebody in America or in Britain. So then it means that business is going to improve. But in Africa, for that matter, we want to connect Africa, the most cities of Africa, so that we can do business, we can transact. Business people can then transact with other business people in Africa. I can transact with somebody who's sitting in Egypt, with somebody who's sitting in Nigeria, with somebody who's sitting in Mali, when I'm sitting here in South Africa. So that's what we want to do.
All right, in a short while, we're going to be talking to someone representing big business in the ICT sector. And I'm wondering, what's the role of government in all of this?
Look, the role of government is quite very important, because we look at, as we bridge the digital divide, we want to bring services to the people by making sure that schools are connected, so that children or school-going children can then have access to data, they can research. Our universities must be connected so that our children can then understand what's happening all over the world, and they can get information easier so that they can then deal with their education better. But also we believe that if we connect hospitals and clinics, for an example, Peter, if you were to connect my clinic where I come from in the village of Bushbuckridge with a bigger hospital here in Cape Town, because in my clinic there may not necessarily be a doctor every day, and you have a doctor here in Cape Town in the biggest hospital. This doctor can help a patient in my clinic back home to talk to the nurse or to talk to anybody who's at that clinic, to make sure that they diagnose the patient properly, to make sure that they give the patient the necessary medication. Then we can save lives.
All right, so busy 4 days ahead, and I would imagine that policy might be something that will be of interest to many people here.
Very much so. You'd remember, Peter, that early this year in April, if I'm not mistaken, the third week of April, as South Africa in the department and the industry, we called for a conference to review our policies. We reviewed our policies in ICT because we want them to align with the policies of other countries in the regulatory, in the ICTs, so that we are then able to communicate and build relations with other countries better. And that is why we think that this Indaba is going to be another platform for us to build, to go on forward in reviewing our ICTs policies, but also to get to understand how other people in Africa and in the world are growing in ICTs.
All right, so it's a focus on the continent. I'm wondering, is the continent united in this ICT space?
I can tell you we are very much united. From the AU Commission, we are united in the ICT space. And of course, you can see with the number of people that have come here today, and in the next 4 days, you will see the ministers that are here coming from Africa, the regulatory people that are coming from Africa, everybody in the industry of ICT coming from Africa, and even the world over, Peter.
All right, so in a while I'm also going to be talking to the Deputy Secretary General of the ITU, and I'm wondering, is this platform, is there going to be a message that you're going to take to the world body?
Of course. It was in February when I went to Geneva, and I went and I met with the Deputy Secretary General, Mr. Zhao, and I met with the Secretary General, Mr. Amadou Traoré, and we discussed about this INDAB, and we agreed that this INDAB was not going to be an INDAB for South Africa. It was actually going to be an INDAB for Africa, and together we agreed, and that is why we partnered with them to organize this huge INDAB, as you would see. And I think that people at home will also be able to share with us as we continue during the day and during the week. And that is why the Deputy Secretary General, Mr. Zhao, is here today.
All right, so on the 7th, when you look back, what will have needed to have happened for you to say, this is what I wanted as an outcome?
Look, we don't want this INDAB to be one of those meetings, Peter, where we come and talk, or whether you call it a talk shop, and then we go away home and we have not taken anything. One, we want to make sure that as we discuss, we take notes on the regulatory. We will then see how we can align so that we agree, all of us in the continent. But two, in terms of policies, how do we then begin to align our policies so that they can talk together and so that they can help us do what I said earlier on in business and all. So when we walk out of here, Peter, I believe that we will have documents, and I want to tell you that when we walk out of here, we will again then have a team that's going to finalize and put on up the final details of the resolutions that we're going to take here in this endeavor.
Okay, and that's where we're going to have to leave it, unfortunately. Okay. But Minister of Communications in South Africa, Dina Pule, thank you very much for joining us on the program.
Okay, thank you, Peter, and thank you very much for having me.
All right.